Look at managerial accounting example 7a. We're going to look at transfer pricing. So go ahead and read and get yourself familiar with this example. We've got a few things to worry about here in this one. We've got two different divisions. Each one sort of has an opportunity to work outside, or they can work with different divisions of the same company. And again, this is what makes transfer pricing difficult or contentious, is that in theory, the managers of the manufacturing and retail marketing divisions are supposed to be working for the same company. They're supposed to be on the same team. They're supposed to be working for you're in the same direction, but at the same time they also end up having their own individual interests, and so they're sort of competing against each other when they really should be working together. And that creates a tension that doesn't exist when you're sort of dealing with outside companies. If you just call up a supplier or you call up a customer and you recognize that they're not supposed to be trying to help you out so much as they're supposed to be trying to make their own profit. So there's always a tension built into transfer pricing. So let's take a look at the questions that we are asked to answer. First, if manufacturing has excess capacity, what's the lowest price it will likely accept from retail marketing? In this setting, manufacturing has a choice whether to sell to retail marketing or whether to sell to the outside market. One of the nice things about transfer pricing is you don't really have to worry about your customers finding out and getting upset if you're making an internal transfer at a price that's lower than a market price. First of all, your outside customers are unlikely to find out. And second of all, even if they do, well, that's sort of a fairly expected thing, that internal transfers are going to happen at a lower price than external sales. So if you're the manager of the manufacturing division and you're facing these parameters, you're facing a product that takes $48 to make each unit. You can sell it for $65 to your external customers. Your accounting system allocates $10 of fixed overhead, but as we've always talked about all semester long, it's fixed, it's an allocation, so we're not going to worry too much about this. In real life, you're going to see this number all the time. If you ask your accountant, what's it take to make a product, you're probably going to get an answer of 58 bucks. And your job, now that you've been through managerial accounting class, is to understand what the $58 doesn't mean. It doesn't mean that each unit is an additional 58. In fact, each unit costs $48 to make, and the 10 bucks is a fixed overhead getting allocated. So, if you're the manager of manufacturing and you are trying to sell these, now if you have excess capacity, what that means is that you're selling all you can sell at $65 to your industrial customers, and you still have more room in the factory and more materials available and more employees available to make more units if you want to. So if you're going to make these additional units for the retail marketing division, really all you're going to incur is the variable cost of $48. That's all it takes. You have spare capacity, so you don't have to give up any sales to outside business if you're going to sell to your internal customer. And again, the fixed overhead's fixed, so we're going to ignore that. So requirement 1, if we have spare capacity, all we have to cover is our variable cost of $48. Requirement 2, what if we don't have spare capacity? So in this setting, we are making and selling as much as we can, and our industrial consumers are buying all of this item that we can make. And so if we sell to our retail marketing internal customer, we're giving up the opportunity to sell units to our outside industrial customers. So in that case, we're not only going to include our variable cost to manufacture, but we're also going to include our opportunity cost. We'll just say our CM on outside sales, which will be our outside selling price minus our variable cost to manufacture. So our total cost, including our opportunity cost, is $65, which looks an awful lot like our selling price, and that's for a reason. In other words, if I can sell them externally for 65 bucks, what am I going to sell them internally for? I'm only going to sell them internally for $65 as well. This assumes that I do have the autonomy to decide whom to sell to, but if I have that autonomy, if I can sell it to someone else for 65 bucks, I'm probably going to sell to you for 65 as well. All right, so we have to figure out whether we have spare capacity or not. If we do have spare capacity, we're willing to sell at really anything above our variable cost to manufacture. If we don't have spare capacity, we have to cover our opportunity cost before we're going to make money selling this to an internal customer. This should look an awful lot like the special order setting because it's really the same logic. I'm deciding to make a sale, and I'm not trying to use my normal pricing. I'm trying to use pricing that just sort of maximizes my short-term net income. But I'm not worried so much about all my regular pricing decisions. So in that case, we're really going to use the same logic. Requirements 1 and 2. This is the lowest price I'll accept with spare capacity and without spare capacity. Requirement 3, and I'll put it over here to keep the two parts of the business separated. What is the highest price retail marketing will likely pay to manufacturing? Well, in this setting, what do I get for buying one of these power drills? If I'm now the retail marketing manager, I get a selling price. If I get one of these drills and repackage it, I can sell the price to hardware stores. Sorry, I can sell the good for $85. Costs me $14 to repackage the industrial good to a consumer good. So the contribution margin I have available for every unit that I resell to a hardware store, the profit that's available for me to make is $71. So anything up to that 71, I'm still better off for buying and reselling. So the maximum price I'm likely to pay is $71. If I buy anything below 71, I can resell and still make a profit. Now, of course, if this is going to be my sort of bread and butter business, I'm going to want a better price than that, because if I pay anything close to 71, I'm essentially breaking even. But as a boundary condition to say what's the most I'm willing to pay for this item, that's what it'll be. It'll be the $71. So step 4, given the above, what's likely to happen? Well, I've got a buyer who's willing to pay up to 71, and I've got a seller that's willing to sell for either 48 or 65, depending on the seller's conditions. So what's probably going to happen, given the above, is there will probably be trade, or probably internal transfers at a price between 65 and 71. Now, in theory, the bottom end of the range could go down to 48 when there's excess capacity and go back up to 65 when there's not. In practice, what's probably going to happen is manufacturing is not going to be real forthcoming with their information about whether they have spare capacity or not. And so they're probably just going to set a regular transfer price at 65. Since retail marketing, by and large, is still accepting a price of 65, then it'll probably be something like 65. One of the problems with transfer pricing is that parties have differential information. Manufacturing will always know better than marketing will whether manufacturing has spare capacity. So they'll be able to set their bottom price with much better information. And to a certain extent, retail marketing is just in a disadvantageous situation there. So requirement 4, given these settings, there will probably be an internal transfer at a price between 65 and 71. Now, requirement 5, what happens if I can get a price of $67 per unit? Well, really what this is going to do is, if I'm retail marketing, now I'm not willing to pay up to 71. I'm willing to pay not more than the 67 I can pay for the good from someone else. And so now the range of acceptable transfer is going to be a lot smaller, 65, 67. They'll probably, split it in half, call it 66, and there'll be transfer around there. So in this case, if the buyer finds a cheaper option externally, and again, given that they've got autonomy to do it, then the buyer will reduce the maximum price. And we've got a pretty narrow range here of acceptable pricing. Requirement 6, if retail marketing can get a similar good for no more than 61, then there will be no transfers when manufacturing has no spare capacity. Because really what's happened, if retail marketing can get get the good for $61, then this scenario where manufacturing's got to get 65 or they're losing money, there's no price that's greater than 65 and lower than 61. Of course, there's no price that makes both parties happy. So what's going to happen is manufacturing will only be willing to sell for a price as low as 61 that retail marketing is willing to take when manufacturing does not have spare capacity. So the transfer price will be reduced to 61, and there will be no transfers when manufacturing does not have spare capacity. What also is going on here is we have to figure out why it would be that a supplier could sell a good for $61. Why are they willing to sell to us for 61? Is our manufacturing operation particularly inefficient? Are there quality differences? Why might it be that we can buy a similar good externally for a price that's lower than what we're charging our customers? Maybe our pricing is out of line. Maybe there's branding issues. It's a little hard to tell why that might be, but at some point, if the external market is substantially more efficient than the internal market, then we might wonder why that is. So this is some examples of transfer pricing, trying to find a mutually acceptable transfer pricing option. There are also different types of transfer pricing scenarios that don't depend on these two managers having the autonomy to make the decision. So one thing that's commonly done is the company will just dictate that a full cost transfer pricing policy happens, so that this full cost of $58 is sort of intended to represent something like sometimes there's spare capacity, sometimes there's not. It gives a price that covers all of manufacturing's cost, gives them a little bit of profit because every additional unit would contribute $10 that is covering fixed costs that aren't increasing anyway. So a full cost approach sort of tries to split the difference between when there's spare capacity, when there's not, and how much an outside market might be willing to pay. So sometimes there's a full cost, or there might be a cost plus a percentage, or a variable cost plus a percentage, which again tries to do some of those same things. If that's a policy, usually that policy is going to be dictated by somebody above these two managers. If there's been a history of these two divisions not being able to agree, or if there's just so much change in the market and so much difficulty with these two sides sort of coming to an agreement on a short-term basis, it could be the top management says, hey, here's going to be the policy, you guys deal with it. It's imperfect, but it's better than trying to renegotiate on the fly. Those kind of policies could also exist if one of these divisions has much stronger bargaining position than the other. Stronger bargaining position. So for example, maybe retail marketing, the people in that division have more negotiating skill. Maybe they've got more outside suppliers that can give them the product, so they can put more pressure on manufacturing than maybe manufacturing can put on retail marketing. And so any negotiations would be patently unfair and would create divisions, and it would make internal trade unlikely to happen. But maybe it should. Maybe that's the most efficient thing to do. So sometimes top management will set a policy just to make sure that everybody plays nicely and gets along. And again, it's suboptimal from a purely pricing standpoint, but from from a managerial incentives and decision-making and behavior standpoint, those things can help some problems that a freely negotiated setting can cause. So I hope that's helpful. Let me know if you have any questions. Thanks.